I was just spending time with a high school friend here in Orange County. Uh, we've reconnected after many years of not really being connected. This is the second time I'm seeing him in the last 5 or 6 months, and it's great to see him. I'll get to see him again tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And generally, it was great spending time with him. And we had a very interesting conversation, one that has me a little sad. But we were talking about just geopolitical things. We're both closing in on 50 years old. And we were talking about the state of race relations, gender relations, environment, all these types of things. And living in California, we get to see extreme ends, or at least one extreme end of the political spectrum across all those topics. And something that I shared with him that he agreed with me on, but that even if he had disagreed, I would still want to talk about, is something that I've felt for some time across all these topics, is that there's been a lot more progress during my lifetime than we are being given credit for. In gender equality and relations, in racial equality and relations, and in the environment. And what I mean is that to listen to the radio or news today, one would think, or my impression is that one would think, that all of these areas are in terrible shape in the United States, that race relations are terrible. And they might be, but not for the reason that people think. The gender relations are terrible, and they actually probably are. But again, for different reasons. That the environment is in terrible shape. And I'm not a scientist and I don't know, but I have my own thoughts. But the level of extreme negativity on all these topics feels insincere, because as a 50-year-old, my entire life has been filled with attention to these topics and attempts at improving these areas by American society, by the government, etc. And after all the time, energy, and money that have gone into these areas over the last 50 years and more, but 50 years that I can speak to directly, to think that these areas are doing badly seems impossible. Or, let me put it this way, they're definitely doing better than they were 50 years ago. They have to be, because you can't put that much time, energy, and money into something and not have it improve. And yet, we're surrounded by messages that all these areas are in terrible shape. And what I think is that the people who are served by attention in these areas, and I'm not saying this as a criminal thing, just as an observation and a human thing, they're afraid to declare victory or even progress, because they're afraid that if they do, then attention will be taken away from that area and progress will stop, or at least slow, which is understandable. And we also need to keep working and making progress in all these areas. But to me, the effect that the extreme negativity is having is making me less enthusiastic about putting energy into these areas. Racism definitely still exists in this country. We are not in a post-racial society, nor will we probably ever be. But hopefully we can keep chipping away at it. That being said, not all of one's problems can be chalked down to racism if one is having trouble in life. Gender relations are not good in this country right now, in my opinion. But rights for women are definitely better than they were 50 years ago. Equality is much higher between men and women. And in some senses, you can even say that women are doing better. And again, if someone's having issues in their life, you can't bring it all down to sexism, which definitely still exists in both directions. Similarly, the environment, that's probably the most puzzling because I'm not a climate scientist and few of us are. It's almost impossible to really objectively determine what's happening. You have to kind of take somebody else's word for it because they're the scientist and you're not. But to think that after 50 years of recycling and all these other things we've been doing, that the environment is in worse shape, it's really hard to believe that. Maybe that one has the highest chance of being true. But all these areas are places where I think there's probably been more progress than we're being given credit for. And I would like to see some credit start to be given because it'll make it more encouraging to keep going. I also think, and again, it's understandable, that people who feel they were disadvantaged, say 40 years ago, today aren't looking so much for equality as flipping the script and being the advantaged ones over those that they view as having been advantaged in the past. Again, understandable, but not improving society, really just bringing the same dynamic to society as has always existed, just in a different balance. So we have a lot of work to do to get to what is truly a worthwhile and harmonious society.